I always thought Miss Helsby was weird. She had this intense stare that made you feel like she was peering into your soul. Everyone at Eldridge Elementary said she was the best teacher, but I knew something was off. Then it happened. Timmy disappeared. The next day, Timmy was back, but he wasn't the same. He was too perfect, like a robot. That's when I started watching Miss Helsby closely. I noticed how she'd eye us during lunch, her gaze lingering a little too long. It gave me the creeps. One day I stayed back after school to grab my forgotten notebook. That's when I heard a strange guttural sound coming from Miss Helsby's room. My curiosity overpowered my fear, and I peeked through the slightly ajar door. The sight was horrifying. Miss Helsby was there, but not the Miss Helsby we knew. Her mouth was unnaturally wide, and she was devouring something that looked disturbingly like a hand. I stifled a gasp, but she heard me. Her head snapped towards the door, her eyes wild and animalistic. I ran, faster than I ever thought possible, out of the school and straight home. I told my parents, but they laughed it off. The next day at school, Miss Helsby was her normal self, but her smile seemed more sinister to me now. I knew I had to do something, but who would believe me? I was just a kid. The days that followed were a blur of fear and paranoia. I watched as one by one, more kids changed. They became hollow, lifeless versions of themselves. I knew I had to act fast. I gathered evidence, sneaking around, taking photos, anything that could prove what was happening. Then I found it, an old diary in Miss Helsby's desk, detailing her horrifying deeds. She wasn't just a teacher, she was something else, something ancient and evil. Armed with the diary, I went to the police. At first, they didn't believe me, but the evidence was too compelling. They raided the school, finding the remnants of Miss Helsby's last meal. It was all over the news, the teacher who ate her students. They never found Miss Helsby though. She vanished without a trace. Sometimes when it's quiet, I can still feel her presence, watching, waiting. But I'm not afraid anymore. I exposed her, and I'll be ready if she ever comes back. Months had passed since the incident, and life in Eldridge had slowly returned to normal. I almost convinced myself that Miss Helsby was just a terrible nightmare. But deep down, I knew the threat wasn't over. One foggy evening as I walked home from a friend's house, I felt it, that familiar bone-chilling gaze. I turned sharply, my heart pounding in my chest. There she was, standing in the shadows, her eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger. I ran, my breath ragged, darting through the empty streets. I could hear her, the sounds of her footsteps unnervingly calm and measured. She was toying with me, enjoying the chase. Reaching my house, I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I burst through the door, locking it behind me. I thought I was safe, but when I turned around, my blood turned cold. Miss Helsby was there, inside my house, her smile wider than any human smile should be. "Hello, Bobby," she hissed, her voice a mixture of sweet and sinister. "You've been a very naughty boy, meddling in things you shouldn't." I backed away, but she was too fast. She lunged at me, her mouth open impossibly wide. I screamed, but it was cut short as she enveloped me in darkness. The next thing I knew, I was standing outside my school, feeling strangely empty. I couldn't remember what had happened, but something was off. I felt hollow, like a shell of my former self. As I walked through the school halls, I saw them, the other kids who had changed. We were all the same now, empty vessels. Miss Helsby had succeeded. She had consumed my spirit, leaving behind nothing but a perfectly behaved puppet. From afar, I could see her watching, her dark eyes filled with satisfaction. She had taken everything from me, my will, my soul, my very essence. And the worst part, I didn't even care. I was no longer Bobby. I was just another hollow shell, a testament to the horror that was Miss Helsby. Thank you for listening to My Teacher is Eating Her Students. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like. And if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street. And let me know how I'm doing in the comments. And I hope all of you have a fantastic night.